Shalom, shalom. First, I want to start by giving infinite praise, honor, and glory to yahawah, bahasham, yahawashi, bahasham, qadash. Double honors to the apostles, elders, of great millstone that rule well, teach well, through 100% truth and sincerity. Peace, blessings, and salutations to the hopeful elect, which in is the Israelite foreigners that were scattered amongst. To you and only to you, I say shalom. It's your brother Haran here from the Great Millstone DC branch, coming to you with an impromptu lesson through the spirit and truth of yahawah, bahasham, yahawashi, bahasham, qadash. You know, it just sparked up, this lesson because I was just in the store, and I saw the Times magazine, and it said what? It said the AI. This is the days of the artificial intelligence, which these is those devices that are being pushed forth, in the world right now, causing all, like the scripture says, to start to get accustomed to it. Eventually it's going to be mandated, like the scripture says, that he causeth all, both rich, poor, free, and bond, to receive a mark in their right hand or in their forehead. The Charagma is about to be pushed forth on an elevated scale, because this is what the world's mind is set forth to push. And these are the things which the wicked rulers that ruleth over us, create and think on. Before they go to sleep, they're thinking about another way to oppress the Lord's men. Even if they have to try the whole world with it. Alright, this is how you know it's of the prophecies of yahawah, bahasham, yahawashi. Because the things be is that what we're looking into, we're looking to hasten the day to see the prophecies come to pass. And we're totally seeing these things jump off the page. So jumping straight into it, salaki for my rant. But I'm jumping to it. This is Micah chapter 2 and verse 1. It says, "Woe to them that devise iniquity and work evil upon their beds. When the morning is light, they practice it, because it is in the power of their hands." If you think that these wicked rulers don't already have this mark or that implantable device the size of a grain of rice, then you're sadly mistaken it. You need to wake up and smell the coffee. Like they used to say back in the day. Set your mind and open your eyes up, man. Because if you're not paying attention, then you're going to be caught off guard. Right? So this is the things this is the time that you should be waking out of sleep. Because these things are being worked right up under our nose. And ultimately it's right in front of our faces. Okay? Because what? These rulers, devise iniquity, work of evil, in their own houses, in places which the normal or the regular person would never be able to see. They come up with these crafty devices, unrighteous decrees, just so that they could furthermore the impression of, the Lord's people. And when it comes down to it, they practice it because the power is in their hands. Like the scripture says in Job 9 and 24. The earth was given into the hands of the wicked. Okay? But it's coming down to a transition of power, which in the wicked, are going to be what? Put back in the state that the Lord, Yahawah, bahasham, yahawashi, ordained them to be in. to be servants, of the Lord's people. Okay, because right now we're here serving their cause. Getting up, working these jobs, eating these defiled foods, dwelling in the land wherein all the customs of this land is defiled. And we're seeking to get out of this place, man. To get out of the hands of the enemy. Because if yahawah bahasham yahawashi steps not in, if it wasn't prophesied that the Lord yahawah bahasham yahawashi would choose his people and to save his people or redeem his people, then Esau will have a field day, man, with the destruction that they'll bring forth upon all of Israel, right? Like the scripture says, and they covet fields and take them by violence, and houses and take them away. So they oppress a man and his house, even a man and his heritage. And that's what's truly going on right now. The oppression of the Lord's people. They'll rather keep us further and further away from our heritage, just so that they can, make us profess and practice, their witchcraft, their doctrines of devils, to follow after their fables, right? But when it comes down into the truth, the yahawah bahasham yahawashi, he has put the rawchaa qadash upon those great men, so that they can what? Like the scripture says, thou shalt know the truth, and the truth shall set thee free. And that's what's going on right now. We're being set free from the mind state of the wicked. Being furthermore put into that mind state of righteousness, following after the true living power. Because what? They would rather oppress us, take us away from our heritage, which we now know what our heritage is to be the sons of the living power, the children of yahawah bahasham yahawashi, which they have took those things away from us, beat it out of us, in the time of slavery, man, and continuously oppressed us so that we won't practice, our heritage. Took the color of the Lord, away. Called us bywords. This is a part of that evil, that they have, worked, man. Causing us to do all type of things and manners that pertaineth unto what? Death and destruction. They put out that nigger culture. You jakes walking around, claiming to be black. But now we know what black truly means, man. A void of light. Void of understanding. Okay? But now we have understanding. What are you going to do? Are you going to put on as the sons of yahawah bahasham yahawashi? Are you going to put on as Yasharallah? Okay? Because these devils are out here seeking your life, man. So continuing on, Micah chapter 2 and verse 3. Therefore, thus saith the Lord, behold, against this family do I devise an evil, from which ye shall not remove your necks, neither shall ye go haughtily, for this time is evil. The Lord has a perpetual hatred against Esau, man. Alright? And eventually, he's going to cause us to escape out of his hands. And, the Lord, yahawah bahasham yahawashi, like he said, the Esau and the wicked rulers have put, his people into captivity, so they shall go into captivity, right? But for now, Israel, you men of the Lord and women of the Lord, the women that are listening in silence, following after her husband, listening to, what the men of the Lord are saying, right? You have to suffer patiently, man, because this time period is almost over with. You know, like in Habakkuk chapter 2 and verse 3, it tells you, let me get that. You know, Habakkuk chapter 2 and verse 3, you know, for the vision is yet for an appointed time, but at the end it shall speak and not lie. You know, and it's jumping off the page, you know. These devils can't hide it anymore. You know, they can't hide that they're not the devil. You know, they used to speak these smooth things, causing people to trust in them, right? Now we understand who's those people that are setting forth these unrighteous decrees, devising iniquity, causing the Lord's people to err, you know? Because what? These prophecies, you know, are starting to show, man, this vision, all right? It says, for the vision is yet for an appointed time, but at the end it shall speak and not lie. You know, though it tarry, wait for it, because it will surely come. It will not tarry. And yeah, you know, that Charagma, man, it's in bounds. You know, it's happening in different places. You know, it's happening in different places, but eventually you're going to see it become mandated on an all-out scale. And then you're going to totally know that the men of the Lord, you know, was those prophets that spoke these things unto you, you know, forewarning you of the things that are about to come. You know, because what? The Lord said that all that receiveth that mark, you know, shall be cut off from his people, but ultimately, you know, have a pure taste of his righteous anger, man. You know, when he torments you with fire, thermonuclear fire, you know, or whether he have you pine away from famine, you know. But right, you know, I started off, but this is the age of information. You know, you could be looking these things up, you know, searching into them, you know, practicing and you know, looking into how and what the Lord is asking of you, you know, especially if he ordained for you to receive this truth, to receive this vision, you know, cause so what? So you can be totally prepared when the devil comes in with his great wrath, man, you know. So you got to prepare, you know, get your mind right, you know, like the scripture says in Micah, you know, chapter 2 and verse 10, you know, arise ye and depart, for this is not your rest, because it is polluted, it shall destroy you, even with the sword destruction. You know, and this is what they're trying to push forth, man. They're trying to push forth that destructive mind state. You know, having you Israelites and you Israelite foreigners, you know, profess the ways of this world, you know, trusting in confusion. You know, eventually, you know, by trusting in Pharaoh, man, you know, it shall bring you shame, man. All right. So you gotta remember, man. In that day, man, don't receive that mark because the enemy tells you to. You know, but rather trust in yahawah, bahasham, yahawashi. Whether, you know, famine is at the door, you know, whether the troops coming in, you know, whether you see, you know, everyone receiving that Charagma, you don't take it. Because anyone that does take it, you know, shall be cut off, man. And these are those devices, you know, that they prescribe, you know, through their unrighteous decrees. Right? So this is Revelations chapter 13, you know, and verse 14. It says, and deceiveth them that dwell on earth by the means of those miracles which he had power to do in the sight of the beast. You know, eventually you're going to see, man. They're going to be trying to show forth their, you know, their so-proclaimed miracles of the left-hand side, you know, with this device. But we see that it's just, you know, a gene-altering, you know, device, man. You know, it cuts us off from our true nature. Right? So it's not really a miracle, man. The miracle is that this truth is going out, And Yahawah bahasham yahawashi is forewarning us to save us from, the wickedness that's about to come. Right? And ultimately, he's bringing redemption, for the Israelites and the Israelite foreigners that were scattered amongst, and ultimately the elect of Israel. Okay? That 144,000, and that 1/3. Okay? Because what? 2/3, shall follow after the devil himself and be cut off from the Lord's people. Which end you're starting to see, a lot of people not hearkening to the truth. Do not accept the words of truth, right? It says, and they shall be saying to them that dwell on earth, that they shall make an image to the beast, which had the wound by a sword and did live, and he had power to give life unto the image of the beast, that the image of the beast shall both speak and cause that as many as would not worship the image of the beast shall be killed, man. It's gonna come down to it, man. It's gonna come down to a time period which if you're not receiving that Charagma, man, they're gonna line you up to be destroyed, line you up to be put to death, man, put into concentration camps, right? They might have a lot of you jakes, have to face the guillotine. You might have to be behind enemy lines. The enemy, use their sword against you, man. Okay? Or ultimately, the Lord, Yahawah bahasham yahawashi, could line you up to receive this mark, man. It says, and he calls of all, both small and great, rich and poor, free and bond, to receive a mark in their right hand or in their forehead, and that no man might buy or sell, save he that had the mark or the name of the beast, or the number of his name. It's coming down to a time period which if you don't have that mark, if you don't have that Charagma in that time, you won't be able to buy or sell, right? But it tells you, man, here is wisdom. Let him that have understanding count the number of the beast, for it is the number of a man, and his number is 666. 666. We know that's the number of the devil, man. The devil himself, right? So remember, man, don't take that mark. Pray, cry inside that the Lord cause you not to be cut off by receiving this mark, man. Because he told you in Revelations 14:9, and the third angel followed them, saying with a loud voice, if any man worship the beast and his image, and receive his mark in his forehead or in his hand, the same shall drink of the wine of the wrath of Yahawah bahasham yahawashi, which is poured out without mixture into the cup of his indignation. And he shall be tormented with fire and brimstone in the presence of the holy angels and in the presence of the Lamb. If you receive that mark, man, you're going to truly understand what torment, through the righteous anger of the Lord is, man. And it told you, and the smoke of their torment ascended up forever and ever, and they have no rest day nor night, who worship the beast and his image, and whosoever receiveth the mark of his name. And it tells you, here is the patience of the saints. Here are they that keep the commandments of Yahawah and the faith of yahawashi Hamashiach, man. So yeah, man, don't receive that mark. Continuously keep the faith, even in this age of information, the age of artificial intelligence. Just trust in faith, man, because you're gonna need it in that day. All right. So Lord's willing, it's an edifying lesson, through the spirit and truth of Yahawah, bahasham, yahawashi, bahasham, qadash. Shanya kabad, kawala rakwab, zakwanya now ba'ath. Keep the faith, and shalom.